And I know a lot of Canucks fans, including myself, would love to see this get done sooner rather than later. In fact, hey Canucks fans, and welcome to Clay's Canucks Commentary. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite player, and maybe yours, Bo Horvat. And he's not my favorite player just because my son Sean got to caddy for him at a golf tournament a few years ago. Thankfully Sean didn't crash the cart. And he's not my favorite player just because I got to write a cool parody song for him in the spring, and the Canucks actually put a music video to it. I know you know the one.
53 more than magic on the ice. Hit the toss we play.
But he's my favorite player because of what he brings both on the ice and off of it. On the ice, he's constantly improving. In his 3 years, he's dramatically improved his skating, his offensive skills. We've seen they're there. He's always working on his defensive skills, his face-offs, and he's already shown great leadership on the ice. Off the ice, he's a model citizen, like many Canucks. He does a lot of great charity work and community work. He comes across as very thoughtful and engaging in interviews. And I'm sure that he shows a lot of great leadership traits in the locker room. So Bo is coming off his 3-year entry-level contract, and now it's time to look at his next contract. And I know a lot of Canucks fans, including myself, would love to see this get done sooner rather than later. In fact, earlier this week, I put a quick poll up on Twitter asking, how worried are you that we haven't heard much about a new contract for Horvat? Got over 165 votes. 58% of you, almost 60%, said you're not worried that this will indeed take time. 27%, about a quarter, said somewhat worried, let's get going. And 15%, a small number, said, I'm very nervous and very worried that the contract hasn't been done yet. So, what's the holdup? Well, we know that Bo is the acknowledged future captain of this club. So I think that both sides are being very careful to make sure this negotiation goes well, as she's setting the stage for future negotiations. And of course, they want the contract to be right. So what is the right contract? The first type of contract is a bridge contract, a short-term 2 or 3 year contract that bridges the player from his entry-level contract all the way to his next big contract, which would take him to be a UFA, an unrestricted free agent. Usually with the bridge contracts, the annual salary is a tiny bit lower than it would be in a long-term contract. Basically, it's a show-me contract, a chance for the player to prove his worth over those 2 or 3 years. Now, when it comes to RFAs, this contract is usually less common than a long-term contract. I know the Montreal Canadiens handed a few of these out a few years ago, but when you look at a lot of the RFAs that are looking at new deals, the majority of them do the long-term. Why would Bo or the team go with the short-term? It's hard to say. Most people might want to go with the short-term just so he can prove himself even more, but I don't see that happening. I see him going for a long-term contract, getting that security, and basically saying, hey, you've already seen my body of work. I was the team's leading scorer last year, and I'm only going to get better. You know what you have. You know I'm your future captain. Pay me well, and pay me over a long term. Similarly, I doubt that the Canucks will go with that bridge contract. Again, they already know what they have in Horvat, and I've heard Trevor Linden say that they're looking to sign Horvat to a long-term deal. So let's talk about that long-term deal now. It's usually never only 4 years. That's because a player becomes an unrestricted free agent after 7 years in the league. So if you go 3 years entry level, 4 years next contract, that's already your 7 years, and now the player can go wherever he wants. That's why usually with these long-term contracts, we see 5 years, 6 years, which is quite standard, even 7 years, and in the case of Connor McDavid recently, 8 years. Now Horvat isn't going to make McDavid money. No one's going to make McDavid money. But Horvat is indeed due for a big raise. So let's look at some of the money that he might get. For some comparables, let's look at other players drafted ahead of Horvat in the 2013 NHL draft. Nathan MacKinnon went number 1 overall, and he signed for 7 years at 6.3 per year. Number 2 was Alex Barkov, signed for 6 years at 5.9. Jonathan Drouin went 3rd, signed for 6 years at 5.5. Seth Jones was 4th, 6 years at 5.4. 5th was Elias Lindholm. He is signed for 6 years at 5.25. Sean Monahan went 6th, and he signed a massive 7-year contract at 6.4 per year. 7th was Darnell Nurse, also an RFA like Horvat. 8th was Rasmus Ristolainen. I don't think I even said that properly. And he signed for 6 years at 5.4. And those were the 8 guys that were drafted before Bo. Looking at those 8 players, I think you'd agree that MacKinnon and Monahan are slightly above Bo, so maybe Bo's not going to get the 6.3 or the 6.4 that they got, and especially over 7 years. However, look at the other 5 guys that have contracts. All 6 years, ranging from 5.25 to 5.9. So I think that's really our starting point. That's what we're looking at for Bo. If it's going to be a 6-year contract or even a 7-year contract, maybe those are the numbers we're looking at. I'm narrowing in at 6 years because that seems to be the industry standard as we've seen. And I'm looking at a number between 5.5 and 6. Initially that may seem high, but you look at some of those players, they aren't captains right now and they probably won't be captains in the future. And I mentioned Drouin signed for 6 years at 5.5. and Barkov signed for 6 years at 5.9. I guess if you want to narrow it down even more, that's where I think Horvat will fall in, probably on the higher side, a 5.7, 5.8, $5.9 million contract, even a $6 million if they want nice clean numbers. And that number makes sense to me, that 5.7, 5.8, 5.9 number over 6 years. We know that Bo will eventually be the captain, the number one center on this club, and the acknowledged leader of this team. So there you have it. I'm predicting a 6-year contract for Bo with an average value of $5.75 to $5.9 million per year. And it gives both him and the club some security. When the 6-year contract is done, he'll be 9 years into his pro career, and then he gets to do this all again, but this time as a UFA. One last wrinkle to consider. Will Jim Benning give Bo Horvat a no movement clause? I think that's another topic for a whole nother video blog. Canucks fans, I would love to hear what you think. Leave your contract predictions down below in the comment section, both term and money. Thanks for watching, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. God bless, and go Canucks go.